Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim for The Real Sports Talk. You can like The Real Sports Talk on Facebook, and you can also find me on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST, and that's Cash Kelly spelled with a K. Tonight, if you want to hear my baseball coverage, I know I've been slow on uploading the baseball coverage to YouTube. You can go to Blog Talk Radio /Blitz Hardcore Podcast. That's Blitz Hardcore Podcast at 11 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, and you will hear that coverage at the beginning of the show. I'll be talking about everything from Yu Darvish, Albert Pujols, pretty much anything that's a hot story in MLB right now. I'll be talking about tonight on the show, so you're certainly not going to want to miss that. Back to the NBA though, and that's really what this month is all about. I understand that this is a channel that's been that has been known to be more of an NFL and MLB channel, but everyone knows that there wasn't any better coverage of the NBA playoffs last year, and I don't anticipate for there to be any better coverage of the NBA playoffs this year, and that's why I'm trying to recap as many games as I can, talk about all the big events, and the latest big event is that Amare Stoudemire of the Knicks, already down 2-0, will miss Game 3 because of lacerations on his hand that he suffered after a Game 2 loss to the Miami Heat. Everyone knows who's watched these first two games that the Heat have been handled, or have handled the Knicks and then some. I mean, certainly the Knicks have just struggled. Carmelo Anthony struggled mightily in Game 1, actually came out a pretty nice Game 2, but overall as a team, the Knicks have just been handled by the Heat. The Heat's defense has been too strong for them, and it really looks like this will be a 4 or 5 game series, especially with this news. The way he suffered it, though, has a lot of people talking, what an idiot, he's stupid. I'm going to give you my thoughts on this because it's a bit of a different perspective than I think that a lot of people are bringing to the table. So, obviously, I said about the hand lacerations, but I did not explain how he got them. I'm going to read a decent amount of this from an ESPN New York article explaining pretty much the scenario, his response, and response from numerous other players and people that saw what happened as this whole event really took place. So he's coming out after a loss, and he had a disappointing game, and he, out of frustration, he doesn't just go up, and that's what this article makes it clear, that a witness who said he didn't just go up, make a fist and punch this glass thing open, and everyone knows how this goes. You have the glass outside the fire extinguisher, and you break it open in case of an emergency or pull it open, whatever. I've never had to deal with it, so I really do not know exactly how it works. That's not the important part. The important part is that he ends up hitting it out of frustration. Everyone's done that. They've thrown stuff or hit stuff. I mean, everyone's had that moment in their sporting career, and I've had a few more than one. But getting back on track, he gets out of there, hits it, and then his hand, according to this person who just saw it, he said half of his hand, well, let me just read these two quotes. He said, he didn't haul off and punch the glass, as I explained. He hit it out of frustration. This says, a person who witnessed Stoudemire hitting the glass surrounding the fire extinguisher told the Chris Broussard of ESPN the magazine. He kind of slapped it with a closed fist. He said that he thought it was plastic instead of glass, and that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Anyone who has common sense knows that there's glass outside of a fire extinguisher, but I mean, apparently Amare Stoudemire doesn't have too much common sense. And then the second part of this is that he said, or this same person goes on to say, I should say, he says half of his hand was just hanging off. It was really bad. Blood was just squirting out. That's why they had the paramedics come in, because they thought he might have punctured an artery because of how much blood was coming out. So obviously this was a lot more serious than someone just hitting something and his hand starts bleeding and you get him a Band-Aid and Neosporin and it's all fine. Obviously it was a little more serious than that. So it ends up that he has hand lacerations, the paramedics come in and fix him up, and he leaves the stadium or the arena, and as you're watching this video, you see the picture of how he left in a sling, and I mean, that's a little bit over the top for me, but I guess that's kind of how they have to do it originally when you have a broken hand, because you got to get a cast, and a sling's really the only way to keep your arm supported up in the right position, or whatever the case had to be. I don't know, because the exact medical details of his injury haven't been released. It's only that he's missing Game 3. And I'll continue to read from this article. It says, Stoudemire's frustration may have stemmed from his shot attempts, 9. In Monday's game, according to the source, he had 18 points and 7 rebounds, but 9 shot attempts is certainly not something that he's happy with, and that's been an issue with the Knicks, is that since they've gotten Melo there, things just have not worked out with the amount of shots going around to all the stars on that team, or all the players that are being paid to be stars. So Amare Stoudemire addresses this on his Twitter. He says, "I'm so mad at myself right now. I want to apologize to the fans of my team, not proud of my actions, headed home for a new start." So I don't know at that point if he really knew that he was going to miss time, and if he understood how big of an act, or not an act, but how important this ended up being, because he's going to end up missing a game at least. And then he posted a little bit later and said, we've all done things out of anger that we regret. That makes us human. Bad timing on my part. Sorry guys, this shall pass. And originally I thought about this and I just said, wow, that's really, really stupid. But then I really thought about it and I thought, you know what? I would have done this. This is something that I would have done. And maybe it wouldn't have been hitting the glass outside a fire extinguisher, but I mean, I've seen kids come to basketball practice when I played in middle school and everything for my school, and they'd come to practice, and obviously they never told the coaches. They'd come to practice with a broken hand because they got in a fight with their parents and they slammed their hand off a door or whatever the case may be. So obviously, this isn't like Amare Stoudemire is not the first one to have an injury. Unfortunately, it's not just he has a crushed hand. It's that he has lacerations to his hand, and that it's really something that's going to prevent him from playing. And the difference between someone in middle school or high school doing it is that they're playing in middle school, high school, and they're teenagers. Amare Stoudemire, A, is not a rookie, and B, the kids in high school aren't making money. Amare Stoudemire is on the second year of like a 6-year, $100 million contract in one of the biggest media markets well, actually, it is the biggest media market in the world in terms of sports and pretty much everything else. And you cannot do this with all the issues that the Knicks have had this season. Besides the Linsanity bright spot of the season, there really has not been anything productive about this season from the Knicks. This was a team that I think a lot of people felt, with the addition of Tyson Chandler, would be a 3 or 4 seed, and instead they end up barely beating out the Sixers, who barely even made it into the playoffs, to be the number 7 seed. They're getting spanked by the Heat. It doesn't look like they're even going to win a game in that series. And I mean, the frustration just continues to mount. And Amare Stoudemire could not have done this. You can give me the line of, we all make mistakes. Yeah, I mean, that's great, but if I was a Knicks fan, that doesn't make me feel any better. That makes me more pissed at you that you would say that, especially at this point. That is something, if you're going to say that you say in the off season, in a month or two after the NBA Finals and everything, and all the dust is settled, you say, look, I made a mistake with that deal, and that's my bad on that, and can we please move on? But you don't say that when the series is still going on, and everyone is still disgusted at you. I know that he probably felt a lot of backlash. You just got to take the blame, and you can say that I did this for this, and this reason, and we've all kind of done something stupid, which certainly isn't untrue. And I mean, there's certainly been athletes that have done stupider things. But if you really think about what Amare Stoudemire did here, he did it in a playoff series when his team really needs him to get going, and he hasn't been going early on in this series. I understand the frustration from him because the Heat have just absolutely dominated them early on in this series, but it was not something that he could do, and ultimately it's going to cost him Game 3, and it might cost the Knicks a chance, if they had any, to get back into this series. So I'm Tim. Hit me up on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST. Also, like The Real Sports Talk on Facebook. If you want to email me, hit me up at CashKellyNAC@gmail.com. I'll see you guys later.